Welcome, welcome everyone. A beautiful day to you, wherever you are in the world. Hay interpretación simultánea en español para los que desean elegir eso en el menú. Se consigue debajo del globito. And yeah, here we are for the Sunday, a program called the Sunday Sounds of Dhamma. And before I get started, I will say that tonight there's going to be a Buddhist art virtual tour, and we're going to do a tour of the beautiful cave monasteries in the western part of China, Dongwang, Mogao caves, and the Maijishan caves. And that's from 6:30 to 8:30 or so. It's a workshop, a little bit of a I think that's the right time. Hold on. Or is it at 6 o'clock? That is a drop-in, so there's no registration necessary. And if you want to come, you're welcome. Everyone is welcome. 6 o'clock to 8:30. I thought that was supposed to be a little longer than 2 hours. There will be a little bit of a break there. Let's see what else. Tuesday tune-in is starting up again. Yay! Tuesday nights, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Also hybrid like this, so in person and online the first time this coming Tuesday. Then it'll be fully virtual for the next few weeks. And that's because I will be leaving on Thursday for my pilgrimage to India and Nepal. And I'll be gone for 3 weeks. So please keep a close eye on the website. We will have some really wonderful guest teachers coming to give talks, including my good friend Lian Shut, a lovely Vietnamese woman who I've practiced with for many, many years, who has some very powerful Dharma to share. And Bhante Sanata Vihari will come and make another appearance. Some of you know him. He came and took his Bodhisattva precepts here a while back now. All right, so that's it for announcements for right now. And the Sunday program, as usual, is about 10 minutes or so of guided meditation. Then I'll offer a Dhamma talk of some sort. And then we'll have a little bit of time for questions, reflections, comments at the end. And the dedication of merit. So for today's meditation, I think what I would like to do is to I think we'll do a meditation on earth element in the body. So really feeling the groundedness, the weightiness, the solidity of the body as a way of anchoring the mind in this present moment. So you can begin with a little bit of movement. Please make sure your mics are muted, everyone. And then allowing that body to rock its way into a balanced posture, the spine aligned. Leaving plenty of room for the breath to breathe the body naturally. Finding that alignment all the way up through the neck and the head. Softening the eyes. And softening the mouth. Now moving the attention to the crown of the head. Just checking in to see if you can feel the firmness of the body. Then moving the attention down, perhaps down to the forehead. Just noticing the earth element, the firmness, the solidity of the body. And continuing to move down like that. Feeling the sensations down through the head and the neck. And continuing down the torso, just aware of the solidity of the body, the fleshiness, that natural stability of the earth in each cell of the body. Slowly moving the attention down the torso. We know scientifically that this body is made of carbon and iron and things of earth. But we can also have just the basic sensation of the body. Perhaps by now your attention is down in the lower abdomen and the hips. Just feeling that natural stability, that weightiness. And then moving down the right leg, slowly, slowly. And then moving to the top of the left leg. And beginning to move the attention down the left leg. Just feeling the weight, the steadiness of the body. Finally arriving at the left foot, also pervaded by earth element. And now in these last moments of the meditation, just opening the attention to the whole body at once. The whole body from head to toe. Just sensing the body in the posture that it's in right now. All right, beautiful. That brings us to the end of meditation for the program right now. And I'll transition over to the Dhamma talk, but first we're going to chant the homage to the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. So there are some chant cards there right behind you, Ryan, on the, yep, those little pieces of paper there. And you can pass them out. And folks online, give me one moment here. All right, can you see that? Everybody online? Let me get a tiny bit bigger. Feel free to chant along if you would like, keeping your mics muted if you're online. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. Each time I try to think about what I want to say on Sunday, it's my hope to talk about things that you can actually apply to your everyday life. And still, I think that it's helpful to think about the path as a whole, to really have a sense of the greater context of practice, not just as a moment in time, but as a part of all of your life. And when I think about the path as a whole, it really strikes me that particularly the way that the path is described in early Buddhism, but also even in later times, what we hear again and again is a path of clarity. The whole path is about clarity. Clarity about what we experience inwardly, and clarity about what we observe externally. And there are various facets to this. But there's a beautiful sutta that I'm reminded of that in which the Buddha, so the Buddha was a historical personage. He lived in India in about 500 or so BC. And he was walking in the forest with some of his students. And he picks up a handful of leaves and he says, "Are there more leaves in my hand or on the trees?" And the students say, "Well, of course, good sir, there are many more leaves on the trees than in your hand." And he says, "Right. The leaves in my hand are few, and the leaves on the trees are many. And the things that I have taught are like the things in my hand, the leaves in my hand. But the things that I have known by practicing, by awakening, are like the number of leaves on the trees in the forest." But he says, "I only teach the ones, the small number of things, because that's all you need to find absolute peace and clarity in your life. A peace and a clarity beyond anything you've ever known. Just the number of leaves you could hold in your hand, that many teachings. Indeed, I would go so far as to say, if you only penetrated 1 or 2 teachings to the bottom, that would be the practice of a lifetime." So it's a very wide path, but we're not asked to become experts in Buddhism. We are asked to really dive deeply into experience. So usually the way that this is spoken about is in 2 main aspects when we talk about Buddhism, and in terms of meditative practice especially. We usually talk about 2 main aspects. We talk about samatha and vipassana. Samatha is the calming, is the steadying, is a practice that usually leads to what we call immersion or concentration, where the mind becomes very, very focused and still and bright, actually, very literally bright, like you have a feeling of lightness, the light in your mind. So that's samatha. Samatha is the stilling of, is sort of training the mind to be able to be steady and focused and not be grasping at external experiences. And then you have vipassana. Vipassana is usually translated as insight. And the insight forms of meditation is a very different skill. It's a very different skill than the forms that are concentration. So it doesn't demand this kind of very deep stillness. But rather, the insight meditations are is a mind that is flexible enough to attend to a variety of different things, moment by moment. Yeah? So it's like point, 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 point. That's vipassana practice, right? Versus concentration practice, which is you settle on one thing. It might be the breath, it might be a color, it might be the quality of compassion, and you really allow the mind to stay. So these are the ways that we talk about the skill of enabling the mind to become more clear about experience. And if you just listen to those for just a moment, you might notice that most of us have a little bit of a tendency to one side or the other of that spectrum, right? We might find it easier to be really quiet and still, or we might find it easier to just attend to that flow, to attend to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And either way is okay. Ultimately, a little of both are actually necessary. But I would say leaning into whatever your particular skill is in meditation is great. Insights will arise from either one of those ways of practicing. Clarity will arise from either one of those ways of practicing. And we see this terminology when we see how the benefits of practice are described in the suttas. Yeah, so I often mention this phrase that is used for the dawning of awakening or the dawning of real understanding, profound understanding, which is yata bhutanyana dasana. That's a Pali phrase that means knowing and seeing things just as they are. Knowing and seeing things in their true form. And you might think, well, I'm already doing that. You might. But I would suggest that with practice, there are different types of perceptions that can develop. We can experience our lives in unexpected ways. We can find out that we were actually missing some things by practicing. So I'll tell you a story about that, which I intended to leave for later in the talk, but I see that it fits right here, right now, which is a lovely story about a young woman. She was part of a year-long program that I was co-leading. So there were six of us, I believe, co-leading a year-long program at San Francisco Zen Center for folks who didn't live in the monastery or even necessarily live close by. And so there was a gathering once a month of the whole group, and then there was these small breakout groups in the various areas. And at that time I was living over in Berkeley in what's called the East Bay, the other side of the bay from San Francisco. And so there was a cohort of 12 who would meet with me once a month over there, and she was part of this group. And the first month, the homework was to notice what foot you put in your skirt or your kilt or your dress or your shorts or your sarong or your pants in the morning. Just notice which foot goes in first. So that was the first month's homework. Why? Because that is a practice of mindfulness of body, awareness of the body. And usually, in the early suttas especially, that's a good place to start. You just start getting aware of what's going on here. Well, month 2 comes and she approaches me and she says privately, now she told this whole story in public, so that's why I can talk about it. She says, you know, I still haven't seen which foot I put in my skirt first thing in the morning. I get in my car to go to work every day and I'm like, oh, I still didn't see which foot I put in my skirt this morning. And so we talked a little bit about that. You know, we talked about habits, how maybe it's easier to see something if you change up what your normal routine is, because then you have to think about it a little bit. And we talked about maybe slowing down a little bit, trying to have a little bit more time in the morning. And we talked about being aware of the moment before the moment you're trying to observe, right? So you are aware when you pick up your skirt that you want to watch which foot goes in, right? So we talked about all these different techniques. And then off she goes. And about, I don't know how long later, maybe a couple of weeks later, we were having another meeting and she said, guess what? I saw which foot I put in my skirt in the morning. I usually put in, and I think she said left foot. I usually put in my left foot in the morning. And she said, but that's not the coolest part. And I said, oh, what's the coolest part then? And she said, the coolest part is that my daughter, so now she was the mom of a little 3-year-old girl, she said, my daughter also puts her left foot in first. Ah, beautiful. So not only did this young woman have more awareness of her own body and her own life, right? What's going on with her in the morning. But she also had more awareness of her daughter, this little being that she's interacting with every day. And maybe that awareness brings just a slight bit of less conflict, right? Because if you know that she likes to put her left foot in first, you might offer her the left leg of the pants first. And even if she changes her mind and decides she wants the right leg today, you're there for it. You're there for it. But up until trying to do this practice, so now you all have homework, right? Up until trying to do this practice, she was not aware that she wasn't aware of getting dressed in the morning. Right? But just that little bit of mindfulness, just that little bit opened up something for her. And that's how it is for all of us. So for that reason, also in the first discourse of the Buddha, in Connected Discourse 56, from chapter 56, number 11, which is called the first turning of the wheel of Dhamma, the Buddha says that when he realized the noble truths, when he realized the truth that there is dukkha, there is this kind of unfulfilling or unsatisfactory part of life's experiences, he says there arose in him vision and knowledge and wisdom and light concerning things unknown before. And you could say that that is what insight means. By definition, insight is that sudden opening of a knowledge that you didn't have before. So I think about it in terms of stepping through doorways. We step through doorways. The Dhamma that you hear, the Dhamma that you read, the Dhamma that you see somebody else practicing, perhaps, opens the door so that you can see the path. But you, by doing the practice, step through. And when you step through that door, then you see, there's another door. Usually. There's another door. And I don't say that to mean that, to bring despair or to make it sound impossible, but rather that, you know, the path has this beautiful unfolding. You know, one way that I used to talk about it is this metaphor of like, if you go on the subway trains in both New York and London and San Francisco, there are these seats that face toward the back, that face in the opposite direction of the way the train is going. And our path of practice is a little bit like that. We're sitting in the seats that don't face necessarily in the direction where we're going. We're going in that direction, but we may not have, you know, this view or this knowing of how it's going to unfold. And that's the beauty of it. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that is because it is karmically driven. And karma in Sanskrit, or kama in Pali, is a very, very sort of complex function. And the practice is intended to sort of work with that. But we just step through the door. Or we just sit down in that seat that faces the back of the train and carry on. And carry on. So sometimes, there have been great debates over the centuries about whether enlightenment is a sudden moment or a gradual process. And I think the truth is that it's both. It is both. We do our part, and little by little, we make choices along the way that contribute some conditions. But then there are other conditions that also have to come into play. And when they do, there is a sudden movement. Like an earthquake. So I would suggest, though, that that issue of choice is one of the most important things we can be clear about. We need to be clear about. So last week, I gave a bit of a talk about right speech. And right speech is one of the aspects of what we call the Eightfold Path. So it's right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Okay, that's the Eightfold Path. And so I thought, I spoke about right speech, then I'll say a little bit about right view. And right view, the linchpin for right view is knowing that our choices matter. That choice to pay attention to which foot goes in the skirt, or that choice to sit down to do the meditation, or that choice to make the ethical decision, those things matter. Those are the points at which we give fuel to the path. And when we see this word right, it doesn't mean necessarily sort of right versus wrong. That's also, I think, something that can be confusing for people or sort of off-putting for people. But it's the word in Pali is samma, and samma means something like sound, like that's a sound decision, or something that's reasonable. Right meaning right in the sense of like not opposed to what's true, something that leads forward in this discovery of the nature of reality, the nature of lived human experience. And sometimes what we see is quite difficult, Sometimes what we see is not going to be pleasant when we discover some clarity about what's happening. Sometimes it can be quite blissful, like blissed out of your gourd, literally, like a moment of like that. But it can also be, kind of difficult. It can also be like, wow, yes, there's more suffering here than what I thought, or this part of my life is more fleeting than what I want it to be. But that too, I would suggest, can bring a kind of relief. So even though we're coming to the end of the time here, that time for my talk part, I will tell you one more little story, which is about a time when I was a volunteer chaplain. I was just really getting started in doing chaplaincy there in San Francisco. And I walked, and that, you know, what you do when you're a chaplain in the hospital is you kind of just approach the entryway to somebody's room and sort of introduce yourself and see if they're open to a conversation. And so I walked into the doorway of this room, and there was a woman seated on the bed facing away from the door who was the patient. She's still in her hospital gown. And then there was another woman, younger woman, seated in front of her. And I said, oh, hi, you know, my name is such and such, and I'm the volunteer chaplain, and I'm just here to talk a little bit about how your experience is going. And the one who turns out to be the daughter, the woman who was facing me at the door, was kind of like, oh, no, she's just getting dressed to go. We're literally just gotten discharged, and we're just getting dressed to go, and we don't need to talk to anybody. We're good. And the woman who was the patient, who was sitting on the bed, turned around and looked at me, and then turned back and looked at her daughter and said, could you excuse us for a moment? In Spanish. This is all happening in Spanish, by the way. And her daughter kind of said, wow, okay. And she leaves the room. And I sat down next to this woman, and before I even got started, before I even sat down fully, she's crying. She's crying. And I thought, well, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to wait and give her this moment and see where this goes, you know. And so she cried for a while, and then at some point slowed down, and she started to breathe slowly. And then she looked at me and she said, you know, I came to the hospital for surgery for my breast. I lost my breast. And this is the first chance that I've had to grieve that moment. Because everybody wants me to be okay. But I really just needed to be sad about it for a moment. And now I feel better, she said. I don't know, you know, we can talk, but I feel better now just having had that time. So sometimes meeting our suffering is really what we need to do, is really what will bring some relief. Even though our loved ones might want us to be okay. But the reason why I tell this story is not just because of the relief that she felt, but the choice. She could have just gone with what her daughter said and been like, oh yeah, we're leaving, everything's okay, I'm going to go. But she stopped for a moment and she gave herself that gift of choice to turn toward her own dukkha. With a little support, with me there, handing the tissues. You know? So again, I just say that the path is about clarity. It's about a profound clarity. And we just need to find it a little bit at a time, moment by moment, just a little bit at a time. but you have to choose it. And if you choose it, I promise you that insight will open up. Relief will come. But you have to make that choice and step through the door. All right. So we have time now for any kinds of questions, reflections. Tissues, there are tissues here too, if anybody needs tissues. Right over there behind Morgan, underneath yeah. I think there's a request over there. Yep, great. Okay, great. Let's see. You already got this, okay.
When you're talking, thank you. It almost goes without saying, but it's never inappropriate to be grateful. It just, your talks are so enriching. And just the wisdom that you bring to us is, I'm so appreciative. And I know we all are, that's why we're here. And we're going to miss you, and we hope you have a wonderful trip. But but my question is on the Eightfold Path. And today you were talking about mindfulness and concentration. The eight, no, that was like right view. Okay, I'm getting mixed up with all the different numbers. But mindfulness and concentration are different steps.
Yes, yes.
And is there a hierarchy in that path? And I'm thinking of, because I think of them like wise instead of right. So I'm thinking wise view, wise speech, wise view, wise intention, and then the three, right action, and then the concentration and the
Effort,
yeah,
mindfulness, concentration.
yeah. So, and to me, it's sort of like 1 down to, is that the 8? The 8, or is this the 10? I get, it's not the problem. This is the 8.
Right.
Okay, the 8 factors of awakening.
Nope.
No, it's the 8.
7 factors of
Okay, 7 factors of awakening. The Eightfold Path.
Right. Got it.
Great. I'm going to type all these out and put them on my bathroom mirror. That's it.
Absolutely. Get your cheat sheet. No problem.
The Buddha love list. Everything.
That's always the joke, right? That Christians love God and Buddhists love lists. That's the joke.
He's very Chinese in that regard. But so there's no hierarchy, is there, or is there?
Okay, so I would say no. The Noble Eightfold Path is, the way I think about it is, it's sort of 8 facets of one jewel, 8 facets of one whole life that leads to awakening to truth. Not one of them is necessarily espoused by the Buddha as being more critical than the other in terms of the 8. And there is 1 or 2 places, there are 1 or 2 places in the suttas where it is described in this kind of sequential way, like first you get right view and then you have right intention and so on. But generally speaking, it's not described that way. And I think that is more true to our experience, that the Eightfold Path, it's like different facets become more important or less important at different stages, at different time of your day, etc. I mean, it's all our karma, the things that are occurring in body and mind. because they're changing, then whatever part of the path is going to be coming up for us related to that. So that said, I will say this, that the Eightfold Path, and so now, one of the, so lists are not checklists. Let's do that. Let's talk about that. Lists are the way that the Buddha was inviting us to pay attention to different aspects of our experience. So he says, pay attention to your views, your ideas about how the world works. Pay attention to intentions, to your choices. Pay attention to, is your mind mindful? Are you receiving the actual experiences of your life free of judgment and in a way that's present and in the now? And so on, right? So lists are to be taken in that way as sort of pointers for ways that we can place our attention and place our effort. But where I wanted to go is the Noble Eightfold Path is often even more simplified down to the three aspects of Sila, Samadhi, Panya. So Sila is ethics, Samadhi is sort of concentration, or you could say just meditation in general, the mind, working with the mind, and then Panya is wisdom, right? So the Eightfold Path gets divided up into these three buckets. And the Buddha was very, very clear that Sila, the first part, ethics, is necessary if we're going to experience any kind of clarity in the meditative realm and in the wisdom realm. And why is that? Well, it makes good sense, right? Because ethics is, again, about truth. It's about a commitment to truth, a commitment to honesty, a commitment to non-harming, a commitment to, generosity, and so on. So, but most importantly, it is about us being committed to what's true about our lives. So that part, I feel like it's worth a little bit of emphasis, And in fact, I remember that I was talking to Bhante Gunaratana about a particular kind of meditation that I was trying to, work with, cultivate. And he said, yeah, just make sure your ethics are impeccable, and that will help. I was like, oh, I see. Right, that's what he's saying, right? He's saying that, and it's true. It's true if you just even think about, in your everyday life, right? If you gossip about somebody, or you steal something, or you lie, or you do various things, it creates a bit of agitation in the mind, right? It creates a bit of tension, oftentimes. And for the people that it doesn't create tension in the mind, it still creates consequences in their lives, right? So even like psychopaths who unfortunately cannot tell or feel any difference between a lie and a truth, they're still dealing with the consequences of that in their lives and the agitation that brings. So that's how I think about it. Okay, Brad, I think you have your hand up.
So it's time when I'm finding so many people, including myself, sometimes feeling paralyzed, that there is so much suffering around. What are we going to do about it? And I'm reminded of Mother Teresa was once asked, so with all of your influence and notoriety, how come you don't do big things, like stop the wars, stuff like that? And Mother Teresa said, we are not here to do big things. We are here to do small things with great love.
Yes, small things with great love. Sorry, your connection is breaking up just a little bit, Brad, so I'm just repeating it so folks can hear it. We're not here to do big things. We're here to do small things with great love. Yeah. Thank you, Brad. Yes. Yes. Okay, I think we're pretty much getting to the end of our time here. So I think there is at least one announcement from Dana, and maybe also Kylie had something she wanted to share. If there's a moment, yes, it gets a thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I can sort of hear myself. That's a little weird. Let me turn off this for a second.
Okay, wait, hold on. I can fix that. Okay, now go.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's better. Thank you for the talk and answering those questions. Very edifying. I wanted to make a real brief announcement to everyone here, because you may not have seen that the retreat is up, although Dhammadīpā did mention it the last couple of weeks. But there's a beautiful retreat coming up in May, last day of May, and then the first week of June, with an option to extend, I think, to like 11 days. But the thing that I wanted to mention about this retreat, which in itself is, just very helpful to go on retreat with Dhammadīpā, which I've done a few times. It's wildly, wildly helpful for your practice. But it's also, I also wanted to make a personal plug for the course. It's going to be like a months-long course, so that retreat is just the kickoff of the course, where you meet every month and get a much different kind of support than you get here on Sunday Sounds, which is wildly supportive as it is. But I wanted to make a personal plug for the course to sign up and think about it. It's coming up in 4 months. Because it is just so helpful for your personal practice. And if there's any benefit that you get coming and listening to this talk, I just strongly urge you to consider signing up either for the retreat and then the extended course, Fundamentals of Dhamma. I've done it twice. This will be my 3rd time, and I'm so excited and looking forward to doing it, and just a personal invitation to you if that's within your capacity. So thank you.
Thank you, Kylie. Yes, so the details of the course will get put up to the website soon. They're not quite up there yet, just the retreat is up there right now. But, and it will be a little bit different from the previous 2 times that we offered the course. So if you've already done the course, you like Kylie, might consider it again. And we'll put those details, as I said, up as soon as we can. But maybe Dana, the final closing announcement, and then we can dedicate the merits and go on with our lovely days. You're still muted right now, so we just need you to unmute your mic there.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Giving to the Dassanaya Buddhist Community supports our guiding teacher, Dhammadīpā, the physical location at the vihara, and allows us to continue to offer Buddhist teachings in support of the awakening of all beings. Our support pages are on the website under the support tab. You can donate financially, volunteer your skills and time, or offer material supports. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dana. And to Dana and Kylie and Chris and Fumio and so many folks, Claudia, who are offering their time and effort to help keep Dassanaya vibrant and running. Thank you so much for all of that. Folks who do all kinds of things behind the scenes. And to all of you. So may the beautiful, beneficial momentum created by our practice here today, may it be of benefit to ourselves and to all beings, that all beings might know release from mental and physical suffering, that all beings might know peace. by the power of the Buddhas, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and each one's efforts, may all beings be liberated.
Thank you so much.
Okay, dear friends.
Thank you, Sangha.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See you later, Fumio. Sí, Claudia, diga. Ah, espérate, tengo que quitarte. Oh, espérate. Ah, sí, hola.
Sí, hola. ¿Quieres que traduzca hoy en la tarde?
¿Cómo? Oh,
Mm.
si estás disponible,
Sí, sí, sí.
sería maravilloso, sí, porque justamente Amparo me estuvo diciendo que le gustó lo que vio y eso.
Ah, qué bueno. Sí, sí,
Ok.
sí. Para que le
Ok.
avises a Amparo entonces.
Listo.
Ok. Nos
Ok,
vemos a la tarde.
gracias.
Bye, ya, ya.
En la tarde,
Gracias
hasta
a ti, bye.
luego. Ok. Great. Yeah, she